Alba, Louise, Nick. Yeah. Jessica and Fabrizio. Okay, so first of all, I wish to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands on which we meet, the lands of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. And I pay, on behalf of us all, our respect to their elders, past, present, and future. A panel on special envoys, very, very weird creatures. I was a special envoy myself for the Indo-Pacific up to 1.5 years ago, so I'm not a special envoy anymore, I'm just an ambassador, I hope. But they allow me to moderate their panel, so thank you very much for this. And thank you all for being here. So, as you know, as we know, across the world, 2 billion people live in countries where homosexuality is still illegal, and death penalty is still a legal punishment in 11 countries. Over the last 10 years, we have seen signs of progress worldwide, yet discrimination and exclusion persist, and in many places there is a very worrying pushback of the rights that the LGBTQIA+ community has. So, special envoys have big work to do, both at home and outside. So let's hear a little bit from them. So the first to whom I would like to ask to tell us about the role of the special envoy is Louise. Louise is the first ever special envoy from New Zealand and the Pacific. And so she is, let's say, the only person who is from this region, and therefore you are the most entitled to get started the panel. Please, Louise.
Gujari Gumarua, Inga mana, Inga reo, Raurangatira mā, Ngā mana whenua, the peoples of this land, the Gadigal of the Eora Nation. I pay my respects to your ancestors, past and present, and your mokopuna of the future, your children who are born in the spectacular image of our ancestors. Always was, always will be Aboriginal lands. To our rainbow mob, always were, always will be Aboriginal peoples, our indigenous expressions of humanity. Ko waiau, ko Tāngata te maunga, ko taupo te moana, ko Waikato te awa. Ko Ngāti Tuwharetoa me Hineuru me Waikato ngā iwi. E takatāpui ia. I'm a cis woman lesbian. My pronouns are she, her, ia. I am the inaugural ambassador for women in all our beautiful diversity for the Pacific. It's an intersectional role. It's a deliberate intersectional role from the New Zealand government. And this is an opportunity for me to acknowledge, Nolene, where are you? The beautiful Nolene, who we all know, Nabu Levu, who is one of the advisors for DIVA, well, leaders for DIVA for Equality in 2017 at a triennial meeting of ministers in the Pacific and women leaders, coined Women in All Our Diversity. And I want to acknowledge in some parts of the world that intersectionality between women and our LGBT community has been a source of, and is a source of pain, because they've sought to divide us, to make us fight with one another. But I stand here to say that in the Pacific, we are together, absolutely united in our quest to fight for equality for all of us. So I represent Aotearoa New Zealand's commitment to, the celebration of, the promotion of, and the support for our Pacifica Rainbow family. And I do so from a base of being a member of our family. And so when you think about the role of special envoys and the value, we have a place within our government systems, our diplomatic system. All of us here on this stage are members of our community. So our roles matter because it's us, speaking for us, with us, to change laws and to make the lives of our people better. So our roles essentially are to facilitate talanoa, kōrero, deliberate discussions with our communities, with government, with bureaucrats, with the religious communities, to advocate for our dreams and our aspirations from a base of authenticity as a member of our global community. Finally, I want to end with a whakatauki, and I know Elizabeth Kirikiri, if she's still here, will appreciate this because it is from our ancestors. E kore tēnei whakaoranga e huri ki tua o aku mokopuna. Our mokopuna, our children, our grandchildren shall inherit a better place than we inherited. And that's really the job of the Special Envoy, to make sure that we're creating an environment where we can thrive, where we're valued, where we're supported to be who we are. And in our Māori custom, we sing a waiata, and I started this week with Kevin singing this waiata, and I'm going to sing it again. Because for me, this is what's important about us coming together to whakawhanaungatanga, we call it. And this is Tāngata pui, maranga mai kia kaha. Tāngata pui, maranga mai kia kaha. Rainbow peoples everywhere, rise up, stay strong. Rainbow peoples everywhere, rise up, stay strong. Kia ora koutou.
Thanks a lot. Thank you very much, Louisa. You set the standards, but I hope that the others will not sing. I mean, you are unparalleled on that. So, but you know, special envoys have many skills. Let's go to Fabrizio then. Fabrizio, we are surely you can sing very well, even opera, but I would like to ask you about your experience as the first Italian special envoy. What did it take? What can you say about the other countries who would like to set up a special envoy?
Thank you. Well, first thing, yes, I cannot sing. As an Italian, I have a big problem. Every posting that I had, they ask, no, you must sing for us, if I have a terrible voice. So on this point, unfortunately, it's really terrible. It's a cross that as Italian we bring, that we are supposed that we know how to sing. Unfortunately, it's really a big problem. No, I was the first appointed special envoy in Italy, still the current one. It came out of also of a personal part. As Louisa just said, I'm also a member of the LGBT+ community, and I created like 12 years ago the Association of Gay and Lesbian Employees of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And so I became quite known also in Italy. I tried we were a small organization to help the progress of human rights for LGBTQI persons also in Italy. And on top of that, also, since 6 years, I'm a career diplomat. I'm the president of the Interministerial Committee for Human Rights of Italy. I'm the counterpart of the machinery of human rights of the United Nations. So I have quite a knowledge on human rights, both generally and on the specific aspect of LGBTQ+. So at a certain point, they asked me to become the special envoy. At that point, there were only the United States and Great Britain. Italy was the third one too. And it was, of course, for me, was something unexpected and extraordinary, because as a gay man, as a gay diplomat that I was involved in this issue, to be asked to do exactly this, throughout my career, hardly ever I was asked to do something that I really loved. So that was wonderful. So, but just to stay on the panel of today, two things happened when I was appointed. First, Italy, there is an old saying, what a good diplomat do when he's posted abroad? The answer is that he must know how to play all the octaves of a piano, meaning a good diplomat must know in the country where he goes all the aspects of the country, political, economic, media or culture, human rights activists, and so on and so forth. So The truth is that Italy was already doing quite an important job. All our embassies, we have a very important number of embassies almost all over the planet, and consulate, we were doing already a good job. But the fact that I was appointed created an unbelievable set of events. At the point I thought I was going to collapse because I was called basically almost every day from all the colleagues, either ambassador abroad or in Italy, Director General, and we created a strategy, and that was really so. Today, I think this day of the conference is to amplify. So I can testify that if a country decides to have a special envoy, there is an amplification of the work that already is there, because all the countries, good diplomats, they, as I said, they must follow all the aspects of the countries. Also, there is something outside, of course, an amplification, because we become very proactive. So now the Italian embassy and consulate are becoming more proactive. But let me tell you something more that I didn't realize and I discovered, now it's 1 year and a half, that even countries that do more than Italy, because there are countries that do much more than Italy to advance the human rights of LGBTQ+ persons, but they do not have a special envoy. Well, at the end of the day, I know more than those countries, even if those countries do more. Because the point that I'm making is that when you have a person that is focusing on he gets to know, like what in French they say, the tableau de bord, so you get really to understand the situation, because you become a magnet. And for civil societies, I work a lot with civil society, with all the possible person that you, politician, member of parliaments, other diplomats. So all this just to say that is really, in my opinion, is very important that countries have a special envoy, and I hope that this panel today will help other countries to take that path. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Fabrizio. Hope the countries which don't have the special envoys will get inspiration. Thank you very, very much. And now, probably the most special amongst our special envoys, Alba, you are probably the best placed to talk about not only your experience, but how to ensure that the voices of the most marginalized and vulnerable amongst the LGBTIQA+ community can be protected. So please, tell us about your work and experience.
Gracias. Bueno, muy buen día a todos. Quisiera agradecerles realmente poder estar aquí, principalmente a Equality en Australia, a Sydney World Pride también por la invitación, por acercarnos a la perspectiva latinoamericana de la lucha LGBT, y me parece que este es un gran escenario donde podemos contar experiencias, pero también en los últimos 2 días estuvimos aprendiendo de cada una de las personas que fuimos conociendo también. Así que muchísimas gracias a quienes organizan esta conferencia de los derechos humanos que es tan fundamental.
Well, good morning to you all, and a huge thanks for the opportunity of being here with you, particularly to Equality in Australia, to Sydney World Pride, for allowing the Latin American perspective to also be present here. I think this has been a fantastic stage, a great experience where we have just had 2 days not only of listening but also of being able to learn from the different people that have presented. So a huge thanks to the organisers for generating this Human Rights Conference.
Sí, y especialmente a aquellas personas que hicieron el esfuerzo de hablar también en inglés. Yo en este momento estoy acompañada por una compañera. Muchísimas gracias. Gracias también por el esfuerzo de todos de poder comunicarnos sobre nuestros derechos.
And I do also want to make a special thanks to all those of you who have made an effort of communicating in English when that's perhaps not your first language. I'm here with a colleague, thankfully, who can support me, but I do want to thank everyone for making that effort to make sure that we can all be heard.
Para ir a la pregunta, me parece fundamental tener en cuenta que los derechos LGBT son derechos internacionales, son derechos reconocidos en materia internacional. Entonces, que participemos personas LGBT del Estado todos los días, estando con nuestras oficinas, trabajando para crear mejores condiciones en la perspectiva de derechos humanos en foros internacionales, es fundamental. Entonces, ¿por qué necesitamos Special Envoys en todas partes del mundo? Porque necesitamos que los estados asuman responsabilidades para poder seguir creando mejores condiciones para un mundo profundamente desigual.
And going straight to the question about why we need special envoys, it's absolutely fundamental to recognize that LGBT rights are international rights. They are recognized so that people from the LGBT community should be part of governments, of the everyday work of the state, is absolutely fundamental. It is essential to ensure that these human rights can be really incorporated into the everyday work. So why do we need special envoys? Precisely because states must assume the responsibility of improving the conditions for all of these communities across the world.
Los representantes especiales no es el privilegio de países ricos, es la necesidad de todos en vivir en mejores lugares, en lugares donde estén asegurados nuestros derechos, y a eso también se suman las voces y el trabajo de mis compañeras, compañeros y yo. Tiene que ver con situar una perspectiva transfeminista y particularmente para hablar de mi rol en Latinoamérica, me parece, en Argentina, en Latinoamérica, me parece que hay dos cuestiones que quisiera destacar. La primera es, en América Latina no solamente existen profundas desigualdades, sino también existen muchas herramientas, muchos saberes que han transformado la realidad. Por ejemplo, Argentina tiene un liderazgo, un reconocimiento respecto a los derechos fundamentales hace más de 15 años, como matrimonio igualitario, en el año 2010, una ley de identidad de género basada en la autodeterminación del año 2012 y más recientemente la ley de cuota laboral para personas trans que representa que al menos el 1% del total de la administración federal, del espacio del gobierno federal, sea ocupado por personas trans. Y finalmente el reconocimiento para las personas no binarias en sus documentos de viaje, como el pasaporte y sus documentos internos, su documento nacional de identidad.
I think it's also really important to highlight that having a special envoy is not just the privilege of rich countries. This is a right that we all have, irrespective of the relative wealth position of our nations. Our voices must be heard. And what the role of the special envoys allows is precisely, well, the case in my role specifically, this allows that the trans feminist perspective can be considered within the fundamental role of the state. Speaking about what's been the experience in Latin America, in Argentina, there are really important things that I want to highlight, where we know that it is a continent where there are many inequalities, but there are also tools that have been used and sets of knowledges that have been used to transform that reality. As an example, Argentina has taken a leadership role in this area for over 15 years now going back, for example, to the legislation relating to marriage equality in 2010, the gender identity legislation in 2012, and more recently also legislation specifically going to establishing an employment quota for trans people. Where this assures that 1% of employees of employment within the federal state agencies must be dedicated to trans people. And another really important piece of legislation is the recognition of non-binary genders in all our travel documents and identification documents, which is also fundamental.
Bueno, entonces Antes de cerrar, simplemente quisiera decir que hay saberes del sur global que tenemos que encontrarnos, conocernos y ponerlos en valor. Las personas y nuestros estados representan mucho de esas luchas y me parece que es fundamental poner el valor en los movimientos LGBT. Ese es el resultado de por qué una persona trans es hoy embajadora de Argentina en el mundo.
Bravo.
And before closing, I do want to highlight that there are many knowledges in the Global South that we must meet, that we must turn those values into improved realities. Our states are doing things to get that incorporated into everyday lives, and that's why it is essential for those values to be, for those LGBT values to also be incorporated. And it is precisely that incorporation, that assumption, that has led to a trans person being a special representative, an ambassador in the Argentinian government today.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Alba. Thanks a lot for your testimony here, but for what you have done, because very elegantly you did not say that you were the initiator for these changes in the Argentinian law system when you were Under Secretary of State for that. So, bravo and thank you. Okay, so next, Nick? Yes, Nick. Nick from the UK. So you are the special envoy of the Prime Minister, but before that, and foremost, you are known for having been a staunch promoter and defender of the LGBTQI right community. You campaigned for equal marriage before, let's say, launching yourself on the world scene and creating the International Caucus for Gay Lawmakers. So please tell us a little bit how your national experience then has been reflected and is useful for your today's work.
Sure. Well, I was elected a member of the UK House of Commons in 2005, and it was quite an experience for me because I was the first openly gay man to be selected and then elected for a Conservative seat. And lots of people thought that that wouldn't happen in our Parliament, and it did. And then the dam burst, and gay, lesbian, bi candidates stood at all subsequent elections in both major parties. And I think we now actually have the gayest parliament in the world.
Open or in the closet?
Openly. And now a transgender member of parliament as well. And so, as a member of parliament, I then became a minister. The Prime Minister then asked me, I remember, to go to Europride at Warsaw to represent our country. I remember being on the lead float in that parade, and the float came to a standstill, and there were a group of horrible protesters who started to throw rocks and petrol bombs at our float. We were protected by the police. But the other thing that struck me was that actually the public were just greeting the parade with bemusement, not hostility. And last year I marched again in Warsaw for the Warsaw-Kyiv parade. And what was heartening was to see that the growth in support for the Pride March, the greater political support that there was, and the public reception. And that tells me that although we can be disheartened about the progress of LGBT rights in so many countries, and Poland, there is definitely work to do, we can also be heartened that progress can be made. I then became one of the leaders of the campaign for equal marriage, which we got through our parliament with a very big majority. I'd already entered into a civil partnership, and I was then able to change that civil partnership to a marriage. And in the 14 years that I was an elected member of parliament, I really don't think that many of